All right, good morning. My name is Jeff Warrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I'm going to be walking through the forecast, really focusing in on Saturday and then what's going to be going on early next week, especially on Tuesday. We are getting into a very, I guess I'll just call it active, messy pattern with a series of cold fronts, coming through this weekend. And then we're going to have, a couple low pressure systems move across the area, starting Monday night to the south, and a bigger one on Tuesday, and then another system coming in on Wednesday, Thursday, and another one maybe after that. So it's about to get really messy with maybe quite a bit of precipitation. And right now, our main focus, for the more impactful weather is going to be really Saturday morning, and then especially Tuesday is the way it looks right now. So the image that you see on the screen right here is really focused on Saturday. So this is kind of the areas that might be impacted with respect to travel by a brief period there of some light snow and light freezing rain. So this is mainly minor impacts Saturday morning, and it's really kind of along and north of 64, really north of Richmond, especially west of Richmond, where it looks like things could come in as a little bit of an icy mix there for a while before temperatures warm up. The probabilities south of Richmond are pretty low, even though I think the areas in light blue, even getting into parts of Hampton Roads, it might be a rain snow mix initially, and then it's going to be changing over. So it could be if you catch it at the right time, you might see a little bit of sleet and snow mixing in there. And then, it doesn't last long and changes right over to rain, where it might hang on a little bit longer north of Richmond, especially you go up towards Fredericksburg and up here towards Colonial Beach, back towards Louisa. Yeah, the cold air might hang on long enough where you get a little bit of snow with freezing rain and eventually rain by Saturday afternoon in those areas. Same thing with Maryland, where it might hang on a little bit there near Cambridge, just to get a little bit of a wintry mix, making things maybe temporarily a little slick. I'm going to skip over the word slide. What's going on weather-wise for tomorrow for Saturday. I have this kind of high pressure building down. It's going to be cool in the morning, and the moisture is going to be overrunning it from the south. And so it's going to be a little bit of a battle here between cold air and the moisture. That's why we're going to get that wintry mix across central Virginia. But it's going to change over to rain for most people by I'd say late morning, early afternoon. Sunday, there's another cold front blowing through. That's going to kind of bring us another cold shot of air and kind of try to set the stage there for especially Monday and especially Tuesday. And by Tuesday, you actually see two storm systems here. You see one that's coming across the deep south, coming across parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. That's going to be kind of trying to approach from the west. At the same time, you're going to have another coastal low starting to form here off the Carolinas, that's going to slowly kind of drag its way kind of northeast here. So we're getting squeezed in between both of these, and they're going to be pushing moisture to the north pretty quickly on Tuesday. And then the question becomes, how much cold air is sitting here locked in with cold high pressure up over New York and up over New England. That cold air is going to ridge down the East Coast and down the mountains. So, we do expect to see a bit of snow and wintry mix, kind of a wintry mess here on Tuesday. On Thursday, there's going to be a storm system kind of go through, and another one here on Thursday. You see, we just got storm systems on either side of the state. Another coastal low trying to develop. So the bottom line is, it's going to stay stormy for a while, but most of our snow chances right now look like they are focused on late Monday night and into Tuesday. So let's back up and get into what's going to go on tomorrow. I think this does a pretty good job trying to highlight the areas that might be impacted. The areas in blue here might see a little bit of light snow, and that could even get into Louisa, parts of Goochland, Fluvanna. I'm even getting up here towards Caroline County. You might see a little bit of snow starting there at the outset, as well as the eastern shore. But then you're also going to see some freezing rain mixed in there. So it's going to make it a little bit messy. Timing is probably from around, I'd say, as early as 5 a.m., but really probably about 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tomorrow morning. And again, it's mainly going to be north of Richmond. And so if I go over here and I'll kind of show you what a model simulation looks like here for simulated radar. And let me turn on my state maps so you guys can maybe see the state lines a little bit better. Yeah, that helps some. I'll move it to the north some so some of our folks in North Carolina and Hampton Roads can see. This is around 6 a.m. So precipitation spreading in from the west, maybe a little bit of a light rain there, starting to get west of I-95, kind of stepping it ahead in time around 7 a.m. in the morning. You see a little bit of these light pinks showing up around central Virginia and Richmond. That's probably a little bit of sleet mixing in with some freezing rain. But then once you get Petersburg south, it's looking like mostly rain, where you do have snow coming across, parts of 64 there up towards Charlottesville. Continue to push it into about 8 a.m. Again, Richmond kind of right on that battle line where you see the pink. So this is probably going to be a little bit of rain mixed with sleet, maybe a little bit of freezing rain and snow. Could be just about anything right here in the Richmond area. But once you get to Ashland North, it is kind of suggesting that you're going to see a bit of a burst of snow as this comes in that part of the I-95 corridor. Even maybe a wintry mix, some of this pinkish making it all the way down to Williamsburg and maybe the north end of Newport News. So kind of right in through here is where we get that wintry mix just north of that green line right there. So a little bit of wintry mix in the upper part of the peninsula, maybe even the middle peninsula. That kind of persists here to about 9 a.m. So Southside Hampton Roads, the lower part of the peninsula is all rain. Richmond's still stuck in that battleground where things are trying to warm up. It's still sleet, freezing rain, maybe a little bit of snow. Probably not really getting much accumulation, maybe just enough to kind of notice, hey, something's going on. As you go further north, again, Ashland North, they're getting more sleet and especially snow as you get up towards Bowling Green and those areas further up I-95. And Louisa's locked into the mix precipitation. So this is around 9 a.m., pushing it on into 10. Still got this wintry mix. It's slowly trying to make its way north. Still kind of basically Richmond north. And then as you get into about 11 a.m. and especially noon, things do start to try to lift north, even though it looks like we still could have a wintry mix from Ashland up through Fort A.P. Hill and Fredericksburg, even by about noon on Saturday. But temperatures are going to be warming up. And here's about 1 o'clock. And then by the time you get in the afternoon, it's pretty much over. We're transitioning over to rain. Things are going to warm up. Maybe the Eastern Shore hangs on a little bit longer over here to early afternoon with our folks and our friends in Maryland. They may have that wintry mix and some light freezing rain up until about, let's say, 2 o'clock. And then they should eventually start to transition. It still tries to hint at some freezing rain at 4 o'clock, but we think it's kind of going to transition and really end by about 2 o'clock or so. So that's the way it looks like for tomorrow. Kind of a threat there in the morning. And improving as you get into, I'd say, lunchtime and especially into early afternoon. And again, that's mainly going to be north and west of Richmond as far as tomorrow is concerned. So this is just kind of showing you the precipitation types across the region there. I won't break it down by city, but the main thing is looking at these temperatures here, even let's say back up towards Louisa, notice it does hold 32 for a lot of the day, and maybe we get up to 33 around noontime. So we would think would be right at freezing. It's not going to be super cold, but cold enough. So, Louisa, that's why you may hang on to about early afternoon before you really start to kind of see any improvements. Now, Richmond, right there at 34 degrees, maybe it gets to 32 briefly, but then it kind of hangs at 34 and eventually getting up to about 34, 35. So, tomorrow is just a cold, miserable day. It's just the temperatures will be right at freezing for just long enough. Same thing here at Salisbury. Pretty cold in the morning, but maybe you're sneaking up to about 34 degrees by about noon. So things should start to improve some, even though could be a little bit of light snow and a little bit of ice on the ground there. So kind of get an idea of our temperatures tomorrow. It is cold, but temperatures will get to slightly above freezing should be for everybody tomorrow afternoon. And then Sunday, you can see is quite a bit warmer day on Sunday. So we kind of shift gears now, and we really kind of start to look ahead to what's going to be happening next week. And really the threat looks like it's going to try to come in, I'd say late Monday night, and especially on Tuesday is probably our best threat right now. The models, there's some consistency in the models. I'm not going to break down the European versus the GFS too much. There's members in both models. Some members are warm. Some members are pretty cold. So, the model ensembles themselves, have quite a bit of spread, in both the European and GFS themselves. So what we're going to kind of be talking about is really kind of mixing all that together and kind of staying in the middle of the road of what do we think might happen. And so, this is the areas here kind of in yellow and orange where we think we're going to get, maybe the best chance for some real accumulation of snowfall. So where we're keying in on 3 to 4 inches or more here. So this isn't just 1 inch of snow. This is kind of the threat that you might actually see. I'd say 3 to 4 inches or more. So you can kind of see here on Tuesday the threat there, and we'll talk more about that. Same thing for ice. Could be a little bit of ice potential with us on Tuesday. That's a little bit trickier, and I'll show you what the ice map looks like here in a second. There could be some freezing rain mixed in here somewhere just south of the snow line or mixing in with the snow, and where that freezing rain might be is a little tricky. And freezing rain is always kind of tricky to forecast around here, and we'll kind of start to break that down here in a second. So kind of like we did before, looking at the probabilities of accumulation and impacts. So I think this does a pretty good job on the left image showing where we at least probably going to have some impacts from this winter event on Tuesday. And it kind of curves around, Petersburg here. You could probably just connect the dots with this higher probability of 20 to 20% or so and kind of just run it, straight from out here off of, what is that, I-80, 85 up, basically through Petersburg and then out here through Gloucester, kind of maybe close that off a little bit. So definitely see it's kind of right here. Again, kind of Richmond's the battleground. Kind of almost really I-85 is almost the battleground here. I'm going up to the Middle Peninsula and especially the Maryland Eastern Shore. And as you go further north, especially I'd say Richmond North, the probability that we're going to see some impacts from winter weather, snow and ice on Tuesday are getting pretty high. The image on the right is more moderate impacts, so where we might actually see more accumulation of, let's say, 2 to 3 inches of snow or more, or maybe a little bit of ice. I'd be careful with this. It's kind of showing these minimum areas here. That's not real. This is just a model computer spitting out some information. But the bottom line is there's at least some potential for some moderate impacts, across a lot of the area, at least a low probability, let's say about maybe 10 to 15%. So let's get into some actual amounts of what this might actually look like. And so this is what we do here is we take a lot of the models and we kind of put them into, a statistical analysis tool is what this is. And so this on the left is a probability of seeing 3 inches of snow or more. So, the probability of 1 inch of snow, goes as far south as Emporia, obviously. But this is where we might see some decent accumulation, maybe enough to actually have to plow and things like that. So, Richmond's kind of right on the edge there, about a 20 to 30% chance that we're going to see some significant snow accumulation kind of along Richmond, from Richmond to Farmville. And so that means, about almost 30% of the models are predicting, at least 3 inches of snow or more. Again, this is an average of the model. So if you look at some of the colder projections, this 3-inch line, especially the higher probability of 3 inches here in the red, does push further south. And it does push further south in some of the colder models, all the way past Petersburg and down, I'd say, into parts of Newport News and even down towards Melfa. Some of the warmer models push this 3-inch line much further north and keep the best probabilities way north of Fredericksburg, more over northern Virginia. So right now, I would say this probability is a good middle of the road, trying to figure out what the temperature profiles are going to be. The moisture is coming. The question is going to be how much cold air is going to be here for the moisture to work with to produce snow. And so I think this is a good first guess. And I think if we go with this, 20 to 30% probability right here for a planning tool, I think that better snow accumulation does run from Farmville, maybe over here to Colonial Heights, maybe up towards Williamsburg, parts, Gloucester, and maybe eclipse over here towards Wallops Island. So that might be a good first guess right now of, from there north is the best chance of seeing, I'd say, 3 inches of snow or more. Now, shifting gears to the right, this is the probability of seeing any accumulation from freezing rain. And you definitely notice, along and west of I-95 is where we have the best probabilities. And even southwest of Richmond, kind of just south of this snow line, you got Farmville here, maybe getting 3 inches of snow. But then you look down towards Blackstone, not much snow, but there's a better probability of ice there. So we're going to have to watch out for this, like right on the edge of where we have some of our better probabilities for snow. That's where a little bit of snow might try to mix in with some freezing rain. And so we're going to have to watch out for this, really probably all the way up into Richmond, parts of Chesterfield and Powhatan. We're going to have to really kind of watch out, I'd say I-95 west, and see if freezing rain tries to kind of set up here, what I'd say along and west of I-95. And of course, it goes all the way back to the mountains, back towards Roanoke, and the western part of the state where the probabilities of freezing rain are much higher. So, but for us in our region, we're going to have to pay attention to this and see if freezing rain can lock in along and west of I-95, because that could be a bit of an issue for us with that snowfall and also mixing in with some of that freezing rain. what I have here is I'll kind of try to step through what this might look like. Again, this is another model simulation of what the radar might look like. And so I'm actually starting this at 1 o'clock on Sunday. And you can kind of see, I'll zoom out a teeny bit. You see there's just some rain to our south. What I want to show you is a little bit here Sunday night and into Monday. There's a little bit of this light green, and even it's hard to see it, but a little bit of light blue that tries to show up. This is Monday morning at about 1 a.m. See some light blue here, even across Hampton Roads. So there could be a little bit, the storm system's really passing well to our south, but there early Monday morning, there could be a little bit of light rain and some light snow, even across portions of Hampton Roads, if I'd say from, 64 south, because the storm system, basically Monday morning real early is passing way to the south, and we're on the northern fringe of it. So we'll have to watch out for this. Maybe a little bit of precip there Monday morning by the time we get into the commute time. It might be a rain snow mix, maybe a little bit of light snow falling across, parts of southern and south central Virginia, really from Richmond south. So we're going to have to watch that. That's Monday morning at 7 a.m. It does kind of move out pretty quick by about Monday at 10. Maybe some light rain. It's really showing some light rain there Monday about 1. And then we kind of do dry out. And then as we get into basically Tuesday morning, here it comes. So this is now Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. All of a sudden, all the colors just got a lot brighter. So what's happening here is precipitation is starting to move in and become a bit heavier. And this is about 4 a.m. on Tuesday. And you're really kind of seeing that battleground rain snow mix across portions of Hampton Roads all the way back to Emporia along the North Carolina-Virginia border. But maybe all snow here initially in Richmond and places west of Richmond, and even down to Petersburg and a lot of the peninsulas. Even Williamsburg might be all snow. So this looks like it could come in as all snow in most areas Tuesday morning before rush hour. So it'll kind of get us ahead to 7 a.m. It hasn't moved a whole lot at 7 a.m. Notice how you kind of get in that darker blue from Gloucester to Williamsburg, maybe down here to Colonial Heights, and then kind of running out towards Blackstone and further west. So, from that line north, you do have the darker blues where it looks like we may be trying to hold on to snow for a little while with maybe a little bit more rain here on the south side of Hampton Roads. As we get into 10 a.m., things do try to warm up. This isn't a super cold air mass that we're dealing with. And so, again, you're starting to see a little bit more rain pushing up I-95, maybe starting to try to get up towards Petersburg, but maybe that snow still holding on, basically kind of an east-west line here from, just south of Richmond north where it's still snowing. And so we could have picked up maybe an inch or two at this point. By 1 p.m., it's still trying to show it's locking in. So, from Richmond north, where, south of Richmond, get south of Petersburg, it looks like it's mostly rain. Like it always is, where is this cold air going to be able to stop? And where is the warm air? How far north is the warm air going to make it? So that's 1 o'clock. But then by 4 o'clock, things are really starting to mix a little bit here in Richmond. Things are starting to warm up. And the snow accumulation with this event is not going to be really efficient. And I'll show you why here in a second. But it could still be a rain snow mix across central Virginia at this point. But really, we are transitioning over to rain, I think, Tuesday afternoon. As by the time we get into Tuesday, 10 p.m., it's mostly all rain. And let me show you kind of the hourly weather graph. And granted, this is kind of focused on Richmond. But the main thing I want folks to kind of take from this is the fact that, temperatures Monday night, Tuesday morning, yeah, we drop below freezing. We get down to about maybe 30 to 31 degrees. And that's probably going to be true for a lot of places inland, like Richmond, Petersburg, maybe even here in Wakefield, getting down to below freezing, maybe about 30 to 31. And we're going to be dropping below freezing as the chance of precipitation, goes from 24%, jumping up to about 46%. And things are probably going to start out as mostly snow, maybe mixing with a little bit of rain. But the main thing here, the temperatures are right at to maybe above freezing most of the day. So even though it's going to be snowing, it may not be a super efficient snow. It's going to be a wet snow. We call it a very low ratio snow, and there'll be some melting as the snow is actually trying to fall. So, that's why we're thinking, we could see areas that maybe get about 3 inches, maybe a little bit more if it can stay cold enough. But the temperatures here, they're just not super cold. It's not like we're in the upper 20s or something like that. We may not get this warm in Richmond. I mean, that may be a little bit of hope there. But the temperature will probably get up to about, let's say, 33, 34 and kind of hold. I don't know if we'll make a run at 38. We'll see it. We'll see about that. But we may be able to get up to 34 degrees and hold. So not a super efficient accumulation of snow, but it's still going to be snowing up until probably about maybe 1 or 2 o'clock there, even in the I-95 corridor in Richmond. And so this is, we'll start actually putting snow totals in the forecast by tomorrow afternoon. So the forecast that come out Saturday afternoon, we will actually start to have snow and ice totals in our forecast on the website. In those forecasts, we'll be forecasting out far enough to predicting actual amounts. But we're still probably going to be talking about probabilities here too, because there is a lot of uncertainty, mainly with temperatures. The moisture is coming. The question is going to be, how long can it stay cold? And can it stay cold long enough to get us some good snow and maybe a little bit of ice potential here? I know I sent this out to everybody. So you've seen this kind of the duration here of that snow and ice, depending on where you are, really till about noon, maybe even into the early afternoon for a few folks here, depending on what city, where you're located. But for most of us, it's going to be, right there around that commute time. Unfortunately, if we're going to have problems, it's going to be in that, 4 to 8 a.m. time frame Tuesday morning. So we're going to have to watch that. And high chances of precipitation, Tuesday and even into Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, we got high chances of precipitation all the way really through all of next week. But right now we're really focusing in on Tuesday. In fact, these is kind of our tables looking at all of next week. So you can kind of get an idea here. High chances of precipitation every single day. We may have a few other little bouts of light freezing rain periodically from here and there during the week. But right now we're really focused on Tuesday as our main impact day at this point. And with that, I'll kind of stop the recording